Well, Kamala Harris has announced Tim Walz as her VP pick, and we have concerns. Naturally, it's probably not that big of a surprise to you that I have concerns about the pick of the most liberal senator. It's just the most liberal senator and now the VP of the most liberal administration that refuses to enforce any of the laws of the United States except the ones that seem to go along with their plan. So let's talk about Tim Walz. He's governor of Minnesota, and that may already get you going. So he's in charge of Minneapolis, huh? How long's he been in charge of Minneapolis? And yes, he was there for Kenosha. He was there for all the rioting that he allowed to happen. And that's why I put him on the thumbnail with him taking a selfie in front of the burning structures. But that's not even the biggest thing, right? We have really serious concerns here. Tim Walz is a major national security risk. Not just because he was incompetent, but the fact is that he failed a White House security clearance check because he was supposed to work with the Biden administration. And yet he couldn't. Why? Because of foreign influence. Now, this is the administration that employs an Iranian spy, Rob Malley. Just how corrupt do you have to be in order to fail your security clearance with the Biden administration? Well, fortunately for Tim Walz, the VP of the United States is immune to such restrictions, so he can get security clearance just as long as he gets elected. Or at least there's the appearance of him getting elected. He is a veteran in the sense of he went on tours and he was in the military. But there's some troubling things here as well. He was with the 125th Field Artillery Battalion, which was a, was that reserve or was, I think it was reserves, but it may be actually National Guard. But this is dating back to the War on Terror back in 2005. Basically, his unit was going to be activated to go to Iraq. He was a NCO. He was, at the time, he was a command sergeant. It was a provisional thing that he was command sergeant as long as he continued to pass through the training to get to that rank. He quit before he got through the training, so he is not considered a command sergeant, but rather a master sergeant. And the timing was truly despicable. His unit was called up to go to Iraq, and he quit, leaving them without their most senior non-commissioned officer in their unit to go into combat with. Not only that, but then there's some questions as to whether he was, whether he quit without actually fulfilling the terms of his contract. So that's not good stuff there, but that's not the worst of it, friends. So when his unit needed him the most, he cut and ran. Let's talk about how he has a habit of vacationing in China. Now, for those of you a little more geographically challenged, not you, but the other people in the audience, China is not close to the United States. So when I say regularly, I mean every summer. Every summer. He left America for China shortly after quitting his teaching job in Nebraska, which was after his 1995 arrest. We'll get into that later. But he's been vacationing. He's been vacationing in China every single summer. He went there for his honeymoon, right? I mean, who goes to the same place they vacation, go there for their honeymoon. And this is something that we're not supposed to ask about. Why does the VP of the United States have such an interest in China? Now, his arrest, if you're wondering, he was going 96 miles an hour in a 55 zone while drunk. Now, I don't know how you'd be going 96 miles an hour in a 55 zone if you weren't drunk. I mean, but the simple fact is that made his teaching career a little more problematic. So he's under significant foreign influence from China. But that's not the only foreign influence he is under. Just recently, if you're familiar with the map, Minnesota has a very large Muslim population. Okay? And the Muslim population just got their way. How is that? How is that? Well, they just redesigned their flag. And he put the Islamic star on the new state flag. What? Yeah. This is an American star, friends, on the Texas flag, which we keep up here to remind us of all the illegal immigration happening across that border. And we got, like, American stars here. So it makes sense, right, that you'd have an American star on your state flag, right? That's what other states do, but not Minnesota. Minnesota wanted to pander to all the Muslims, the dangerous Muslims who control the ballot harvesting operations there, which we'll get to in a moment. So they put the star, the Islamic star, on the new flag design. Yay. Does that tell you that maybe we have some foreign influence here on this? Yeah. So Minnesota has always had a ballot harvesting issue, but let me explain how ballot harvesting works. Okay, so basically, people request their mail-in ballots, right? And then they, when they get them, before they fill them out, somebody knocks on their door. Hey, give that to me. Or they intercept them at the post office. Or take them out of people's mailboxes. They get all these blank ballots, and then they sell them to the party that wants them the most. Or they give them to the party that they want to support. Now, this was always kind of happening a little bit, but let's just say the Muslim populations around Minnesota took this to an industrial scale in the last couple of elections. One of the main reasons why they want all these ballots and everything like that, this is stuff that has been documented. This is how they've gotten their mayors. This is how they've gotten the same governor. And this is why suddenly the politicians in Minnesota are so beholden to the Muslim population. Because the Muslim population willing to do extreme violence in order to get those ballots, are you willing to die to protect your ballot? Are you willing to risk the life of your family to protect the ballot that came to your home? And the answer for most people is no. In the inner city, where they do not really police, the police do not actually show up, and the police do not actually report the crime statistics to the federal government either. I know the Biden administration is like, wow, crime is dropping across the United States. It's like, yeah, because most of the major cities have stopped reporting. If you stop reporting the crimes, it doesn't mean the crimes haven't taken place. It just means that you're not receiving the information for those crimes. Cities like Baltimore, Chicago, and Minneapolis amongst some of them in California, have just flat out stopped reporting murder rates, stopped reporting violent crimes to the federal government. And then you have the audacity of this administration saying, well, that means crime is actually dropping. So, of these things, I do not like the pandering to the Muslim population, but he is absolutely in charge of this harvesting schemes and everything like that. But we already knew Minnesota was in the bag for the blue. We already knew that Democrats had Minnesota locked up. The machines there are so fully controlled by them that Republicans don't have a chance. They don't have a chance. If you think it's bad that they have a pipe burst and then they find a whole bunch of stuff down in Georgia or whatever, if you think that's bad, I mean, Minnesota is like, they don't even hide it. They just like, yep, here's all the stuff. Hey, throw those ones out. Throw those out because those are, not ours. So let's just take these. But my biggest concern is this beholdenness to China. Now, I mean, in Minneapolis is the first major U.S. city to broadcast Islamic call to prayers 5 times a day, if you didn't. So you can see what I'm saying by pandering to the Muslim population. The fact that they've taken a major city and be like, yeah, let's have calls to prayer audibly across the whole city. Seems like a good idea. I don't know. Do you see any Muslim countries out there in other countries around the world that celebrate Christmas? Any Muslim countries out there that pander to the Christians in their country? No, none of them. None of them. But here in the United States, it's a different story. At least in blue cities. So, vacationing every summer, honeymoon, constant travel to China with no business purposes, just tourism. And then, after doing this, he goes from a DUI convicted teacher that got fired to governor, to a politician. What's up with that? How did that work? He went for Congress, and then he became governor. This is a guy who has been bought and paid for by the Chinese Communist Party. I'll just say it flat out. That's what we got here. He went, kissed the ring over in China, got the now I don't know if he's been I don't know if he has a fang as well, like some other Congress members. But the simple fact is that he is definitely compromised by China. And in a time where we're supposed to be standing up to China, we got Kamala Harris, who is compromised by China. We got Tim Walz, who is compromised by China. We had that movie, The Manchurian Candidate, in the book out a while back ago, talking about China getting their puppets into the White House in the United States. And yet, here we stand. Our open society has allowed them to completely infiltrate in. If no other question, if no other thing determines which side of the fence you should land on this thing, it's either the pro-China puppet state or Donald Trump, who's going to stand up to China, try to avert World War III, but at the same time not give ground. Import tariffs on everything coming from China. Make it so that it's more expensive to buy foreign than it is to buy domestic. That will create massive opportunity for Americans to make American-made products that can be both awesome, but at the same time price competitive to the crap that's stamped out, all the plastic forms that are injected over in China, to make better products here in the United States. I don't think that this is any kind of question of which side of this political fence you should be on. And I know a bunch of you are like, well, it doesn't really matter. Well, if it doesn't really matter, then vote anyway. If it doesn't really matter, well, then still try to convince others to vote. What do you have to lose? Do it anyway. I know some of you are like out there. I know. This audience, we have way more people who are like, I don't believe in the system, so I'm not going to vote, than we do the tiny, tiny fraction, the minority of this audience that says, I'm going to vote for the Democratic candidates. So the question is whether you're going to vote or not. And if you haven't decided to vote, if you're still questioning, if you're like, I don't want to prop up the system to make it look more authentic, I want to put this out to you. Make it harder for them to cheat. Please. Please make it harder for them to cheat. Vote. Help others to vote. If there's anyone else who's not going to vote and they can't vote for some reason, whether they need to drive to the poll and they don't have a car, drive some people to the polls. Convince people to go. Help people to sign up. If people are like, I don't know how to get a absentee ballot, I don't know how to get people to mail in ballots, get people to vote in person, get people to vote. If they're going to vote the other way, well then maybe don't help them so much, okay? No, obviously don't stop them or anything like that, but make it harder for these people to cheat. They keep cheating, but the problem is that it makes it harder and harder, and it's more obvious and more obvious every time they do it. We caught them on so many times last time around. And if it goes the other way, we're going to need the documentation of that. Poll watching is a big thing, is a big deal, friends. I know that there's a big poll watching operation that is getting wound up. If you have the time and the availability, please consider being a poll watcher so that you can document and so that you can help hold accountable, right? All right, Tim Walz is a Chinese puppet, and that's a problem. That's a problem, friends. They're not going to get my vote for sure. If you have some other thoughts about Tim Walz, I'm sure more stuff's going to be coming out in the coming days and weeks. But so far, not good stuff. Definitely not a great guy. And hopefully you're now more educated to share with others who are on the fence why they shouldn't be voting for that guy or for Special K. All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report.